Hello everybody, it's Gemma here from the inspiredstamper.co.uk. Thank you for joining me again today. Now today's card is this one here, and we're going to be using Stamparatus for another technique this week. I showed you one last week for the wreath card that I done, and this week we are going to be using a small stamp to make a background for our card here, and we're going to be using the hinge stepping technique to do this. I'll explain more in a minute when I grab the Stamparatus and we start stamping to make this card. But firstly, I will just tell you what I've used and what we're going to use today. I'm going to use the Snow is Glistening stamp set, and we're going to use that to make our background. And the snowflake die cut on here is from the Snowfall Finlet die set. We're going to be using this one here and some of the galvanised metallic paper to cut that out. So we've got that. My colours that I've used are grey granite for my card base and some blackberry bliss for the lettering and the layer behind. I've also used some blackberry bliss on ink on the inside to make my sentiment for the inside. The grey on the front is actually smoky slate because I quite like the smoky slate with it. And on my lettering here I've used some silver embossing powder. I didn't really like the way it's come out. It's come out a bit splodgy, so I thought on this one I'm going to show you, I've already cut my J and Y ready. I'm not sure if you're going to pick it up on the camera, but I've used the same small stamp again from the set, which is this one here, and I've stamped with some blackberry bliss ink onto blackberry bliss cardstock. So I've done some tone on tone for my lettering this time. So I've got those ready, and the little snowflake on the front of the die cut snowflake is one of these from the snowflake trinkets as well, and they are available as with the stamp set and the die set as well. Now to make our card you're going to need a card base, which I've got here, which is just one of my standard card base sizes, 4 1/8 inch by 11.5, and scored down the middle at 5 3/4 inch. That gives us that. I've got a piece of blackberry bliss cardstock which we're going to layer on the back, and that measures 4 inches by 5 5/8 inch. That's for the front of our card here. And then I've got 2 pieces of Whisper White, one which we're going to use for the front and we're going to stamp on, and one for the inside which we're going to stamp our sentiment on. And these are both exactly the same, and they measure 5.5 inches by 3 7/8 inch. As always, all the measurements and everything I've used today will be listed on my blog, and the link to that will be in the description box below. So let's get stamping and bring in my Stamparatus. Got my stamp here ready to go. So I'm going to use one of my pieces of Whisper White. Just grab that. Now I'm not going to be putting it right up in the corner because it doesn't like stamping really close to these hinges. So I'm just going to move it along, and I'm going to use one of my hinges here just to line it up with that one there. So it's it's pushed right in at the top, but it is a little bit further out. I'm going to pop my magnet on to hold it still. Now I can position my stamp where I want to start stamping, and I'm just going to place it right on the corner on the edge here. Just there. I'm going to bring my plate down to pick it up. There we go. So I've got my stamp picked up. I'm just going to push that up, make sure it's nice and tight against the edge. Push my stamp down. Now I'm going to take one of my stamp pads and I'm going to pop it just in front of my Stamparatus, just so I've got a nice even surface to press on when I'm inking up my stamp. So as I said, I'm going to use some smoky slate to stamp this. So I'm just going to ink my stamp up really well, bring this down and stamp that down on my piece of cardstock, give it a good press, and then lift that up. There we go. See, we've got our first little bit stamped. Make sure it's tight against the edge there again. Now, to get this to stamp here, I'm going to lift up to remove my plate, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, and then pop my plate back into the hinges, ink up my stamp, make sure it's really nicely inked. My smoky slate is getting a little bit dry, it needs re-inking, so there we go. And then I'm going to bring that down, and as if by magic it will stamp it in exactly the right place where we need it. And I can just hold on to my piece of cardstock there, and you'll see perfectly lined up. So again, I'm going to ink up my stamp, make sure it's really nicely covered, lift up 1 and 2, pop that down, stamp down, give it a good push. I'm going to hold that in place, and you'll see there now we've been able to stamp right across the piece of our cardstock in a lovely line. So now we've got one side of our cardstock done. So I'm just going to take my magnet off, turn my piece of cardstock round so we can do the other side. Again, I'm using my hinge to line up my piece of cardstock so it's in the correct place. I'm going to reset the plate by putting it back in its original position. Ink my stamp up and close down my lid and start stamping again. There we go. So that's one done. Again, re-ink my stamp, lift up my plate, count across 1 and 2, place that down and push down. There we go. And then for the third time, re-ink my stamp, stand my plate up, 1 position, 2, and stamp down again. There we go. And there we go. I'm just going to take that plate off now, so we don't need that one anymore. I'll just remove my magnet. You'll see we've got the background of our card all stamped. Nice and simple, nice and easy, and this is one that you can replicate again and again, because you can just pop your next piece of cardstock in and stamp away. So that's that bit done. Don't have much room at the moment because I've just moved everything around in my craft room. While we've got our Stamparatus out, I'm going to grab the other piece of cardstock. I'm going to pop that up in the corner and pop my magnet down. I'm just going to swap those over, those ink pads, because I'm going to use the Blackberry Bliss now, and I've got my sentiment already set up on another plate. So I'm just going to use my Blackberry Bliss ink. I'm tripping over my words today. Ink up my sentiment, and then we can stamp that down. And that's just where I want it to go. There we go, a bit too close to the magnet. Let's move the magnet over and have another go. There we go, lovely. Oh, my stamp's a bit fluffy, but there's our inside done. So I've used the sentiment from that stamp set as well, Merry Christmas to you and peace on earth to all the world. So that's going inside our card. So let's get rid of this now. We don't need it. We can put our card together, finish it off. Let's close the ink pad as well. So we've got our stamped background. I've got my large letters there, the J and the Y. I'm just going to cut out now my snowflake. Just got my big shot off here to one side. You can't see what I'm doing. Just going to run that through. I am going to do it twice to make sure it's cut nicely. So now we can take that out. I'm just going to use my pokey tool to release this die cut. There we go. Hopefully all the bits should come out. Let me just give it a flick. It does die cut beautifully, this galvanised metallic paper. There we go. So I've got my snowflake done now. And I can bring in my card base and the layer of Blackberry Bliss as well. One of my trinkets for the front. And we can use some dimensionals now. Bring those in as well, get them ready. So we can pop our card together. So let's move those over and we can... I'm just going to use some white glue to layer up my background piece onto the Blackberry Bliss card. Oh, wibbly wobbly. There we go. The glue is very forgiving. You can wiggle that so it's straight. There we go. Now we can put this on our card base. As well, it doesn't matter which way around it goes because it's the same top and bottom. Just pop that on there. Let's just check. There we go. Now we can add on our letters and snowflake. This is when we want to make sure that we've got our card open in the right way. So I'm going to start with the snowflake in the middle and I'm going to pop it on a large dimensional in the middle. So don't worry about being able to see dimensional through because we're going to cover that up with a little snowflake trinket, and then I'm going to place that in the middle of my card there. Now I'm going to use some of the mini dimensionals to put my large letters on. So I'll just pop these on the back. There we go. And just take the backs off. No, come on. These are very fiddly to get off these little backs. So there's one. So now I can put my J on one side. There we go. And just take the backs off of this one. Off you come. There we go. Oh, getting all stuck together now. And then we can pop our Y on the other side. Then I'm going to use a glue dot on the back of my snowflake trinket and put that on the middle of our snowflake. There we go, and that's the front of our card done. So now all we need to do is pop some glue on our other piece of stamped Whisper White that we did for the inside. And we just place that inside and it finishes our card off beautifully. Like so, and there we go. And there is our finished card. As you will see, these are quite quick little cards to make up, so you can make quite a lot of these in one go. If I just bring my other one in, there we go. Like so, and they are done. Now, as I said, everything I've used today, all the measurements, the card base and the pieces of cardstock, etc., will all be listed on my blog, and the link to that will be below. I'll also put the link for you to shop with me now, so you can go on and get your Snow is Glistening stamp set and Snowfall Finite dies before the end of November, and also your snowflake trinkets. And until next time, happy crafting, and I will speak to you soon. Thanks, bye.